So right now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Chapter 9, which is measurement. In this country of the United States, we discuss measurements as the customary units of length. And these are the measurements we use to measure in the United States. The first measurement we're going to look at is inches. It is our smallest unit. It is abbreviated with an IN. 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. Think of a ruler. A foot is abbreviated with FT. Usually we measure things that are small in inches and slightly larger in feet. So for example, your height in America is measured in feet. The size of a room would be measured in feet. Next, we have yards, which is abbreviated as a YD. Yards are larger. Usually you see them in football fields, maybe like lengths of things that are large, but not too large, as in like from city to city or from place to place. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet and 36 inches. So a yard is a bigger unit than feet, and then feet is bigger than inches, but they are all the same amount. It just depends on how you want to refer to that amount of length. Next, we have mile. A mile is what we usually use to measure from place to place, city to city in the United States. Mile is abbreviated as MI. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, or 1,760 yards. All the same measurements, it's what we're choosing to label. So for example, if I was to measure a cell phone is small. I would measure that in inches. The length of your kitchen, I would probably measure in feet. The width of a television, depending on the size of a television, unless it's abnormally large, would probably be inches. If it's a ridiculously large television screen, maybe feet. The length of a community swimming pool would probably be feet or yards. Both of those are acceptable. It has to just make common sense. The distance between 2 cities, you would never measure that in inches, feet, or yards. It would always be miles. We measure the distance between 2 places with miles. The height of a soccer goal post is also a judgment call. It's probably going to be feet, but it could be in yards. Now we're going to talk about converting measurements when you change one unit from another. So sometimes someone's going to give you feet and you have to make it into inches, and sometimes you have to make inches into feet, or sometimes you have to make yards into feet. The first example we're going to talk about is feet. I have 4 feet and I want to make it into inches. What I do is I write the feet underneath it, okay? And then I write the inches underneath the inches. And then I look at the relationship between inches and feet. I look and I see that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. How do I go from 1 to 12? I multiply 1 times 12. So I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to multiply this 4 times 12. And 4 times 12 is equal to 48. There are a lot more inches in 4 feet. The number is bigger because this is a smaller unit. This is a larger unit. Think about it as a big loaf of bread, breaking it into little crumbs. I still have the same amount of bread, but it's just broken into little pieces. Next, what I have is 60 inches, and I want to turn it into something feet. I have something small here, and I want to make it into a bigger unit, okay? So what I do is I write the units underneath, inches and feet, and I write the relationship between the inches and feet. So I write that 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. How do I get from 12 to 1? I divide. 12 divided by 12 is equal to 1. That's what I do on top here. I divide 60 divided by 12. 60 divided by 12 is equal to 5. And that's how I know that 60 inches is equal to 5 feet. I'm taking all those little pieces and I'm putting them together to look at them as in feet. Now, I want to give you a different type of example, okay? We're going to measure, you're going to sometimes encounter something like this. 22 feet is equal to something yards and something feet. This means that I'm going to have a remainder. And if I have a remainder, obviously I'm dividing. And now I'm going to write the unit of measurement underneath, feet and yard and yard. How do I go from feet to yard? I divide 3 by 3 to get to 1. So if I divided my feet by 3 here, I'm going to divide my feet by 3 here. And 22 divided by 3 is equal to 7. And then 7 times 3 is 21. And then I have a remainder 1. This is my yards. I have 7 yards, and my remainder is the 1 foot. So 22 feet is equal to 7 yards and 1 foot. Now, what happens if I have the opposite? I have 15 feet and 8 inches. I look at the feet and I look at the inches, and I say that I go from 1 to 12. How do I do that? I multiply. So I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to multiply 15 times 12. Let's do that really quickly over here. This is a 10, that's a 3, a 0, a 150. So the answer is going to be 180. But I have this extra 8 inches here. I'm going to add that 8 inches to my 15 times 12. And so it's going to equal to 188 inches. So 15 feet and 8 inches is equal to 188 inches. Now, what happens if we're comparing two measurements? I always want to look at which one is the bigger unit, because it's always easier to make something big small. So I see that the 3 feet is larger. So what I'm going to see is what 3 feet is equal to in inches. How do I go from feet to inches? I multiply by 12. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So I'm going to multiply over here times 12. 3 times 12 is 36. So that I know that 3 feet is also 36 inches. So over here, I'm going to write underneath 3 feet also 36 inches. Obviously 36 inches is larger than 24 inches, and therefore that is larger. I hope this was helpful. Please email me if you have any questions about this topic.